simultaneously that we are not necessarily conscious of.
Indeed, yeah. On that point, can I just say, for listeners who are unfamiliar with you, obviously, I should fill them in that you and I have actually met on several occasions, and I do know some of the...
Lovely.
Yes, it was. We had a terrific time. And in what I think is rapidly becoming the spiritual centre of Australia, which is Toowoomba. However, what I was going to say was that you, at the time you had your near-death experience, you were a student, and you were on the path to academia. That's where presumably you were heading, and your life was destined to go. And yet you have, in a sense, turned your back on that and studied the mystical, the supernatural, the paranormal, the spiritual. Can you tell us why you turned your back on academia?
Well, it's not so much that I've turned my back on academia. I've always been very curious about life, and not just my life, but life around me. That has always been there. And I think I studied biology and then went into academia to try to get some answers to the meaning of life and what life is about. And what I found is that with academia and my studies, I went into, medical studies, I came to realize that it comes a point where there are no more answers. And I've realized that this is as far as I can go with that. And having had my near-death experience before I finished my studies, I realized, okay, well, if I can't get my answers, any further answers with academia, I'll investigate the alternate realities and see where that takes me. And so the other point, too, is that my first child was born sometime later with cerebral palsy.
Uh-huh.
And again, the medical profession basically told me that there's nothing that could be done about it, and that I would just have to probably care for him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Which got me to think, no, I can't accept that reality. I need to look further, and this is when I really, really started looking into alternative healing modalities, energy work. I became a practitioner myself, and it's just been an ongoing journey for me.
Yeah, and that journey has taken you across much of the world, hasn't it? I mean, you're a much-travelled person seeking answers.
Well, some people think that. For me, it's just seeking answers. And once people, start that path, there's no turning back. It just goes forward, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And there seems to be no end to it. It's a personal journey. It becomes like a daily experience of what self is, what it means, and what it's about, really.
Now, do you, if you don't mind me asking, Catherine, do you try and bring those experiences to other people to comfort them in some way, or do you impart the knowledge that you have?
Well, I've had a healing practice for over 20 years, and I was mostly doing shamanic healing work with people, and I've seen lots and lots of clients over the years. I've also done workshops. I've very much investigated the Native American, South American spirituality and way of looking at life. I've gone very deeply into that, traveled extensively to the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, and places where Indigenous people have shared a lot of their knowledge with me. That's all part of my process. That's all my journey.
Yeah, you did spend...
Who I am, really. So all of that, I think, started at the time of my NDE, really. It's just ongoing. And I have shared, I've shared many, many, many things. One of the things we're sharing is that we're really best able to share experience with others when we've had the experience ourselves.
Yes.
And people can feel that straight away when they come, when they need assistance in some way or another. They can tell whether the person has had that experience. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's very similar actually to, my own pet subject, if you like, the one that I spend most of my time delving into is ufology, but that comes about as a consequence of having seen a UFO when I was younger. But when I'm speaking to someone and trying to describe or explain who has never seen a UFO, I can see their face blank over, and there's just no connection there. They don't get it. They can't understand it. I mean, they can try hard, but I can understand that it would probably be similar to you trying to explain a near-death experience to someone who's never experienced it.
Well, that's what we've been trying to do this morning. I hope some of this comes across.
Yeah, I do. I do hope that it's. I mean, there are people out there who, I think, need to hear that kind of thing, and the volume of evidence that is now built up is there for them to dip into. The internet being such a marvelous thing it is for accessing information, there are many, many, many case studies that they can access, and I do think it's something that people should access and give them some kind of confidence about how to approach life and build a philosophy in life. And one that doesn't involve fear, because so many of us seem to be fearful of things.
Yes, especially at this moment when we're all going through a huge transition phase, and our internal world is in chaos, as is our external world. The inner is always reflected in the outer, and a lot of people are living in fear. A lot of that fear is the fear of the unknown, because that's the one thing I'm really blessed to have had this near-death experience, because I'm not afraid of death. But I can imagine for a lot of people that is one of their greatest fears.
Indeed.
Is the fear of annihilation. Because the identification with self is so big that they have difficulty, and I can perfectly understand that. They have difficulty even having some sort of an understanding concept of that there's something else beside their current reality. I've been so fortunate to have at an early age been able to see that there's more than just that.
Yes.
It makes it easier.
Yes. Well, Catherine, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this morning. I'm really delighted that you're our first guest on the planetflipside.com podcasts. However, before we round up, is there any literature? Is there anything you would point anyone towards who wanted to look further and deeper into the near-death experience phenomena?
Well, for people who've had near-death experiences, there are two. They probably know, but for people who are interested, there are two authors that I've really read a lot about, and one of them is Robert Monroe, and Robert Monroe has actually created an institute, and there's a lot of information about NDE on there.
Okay.
Another person who's come up perhaps more recently in the spotlight is somebody called Mellon Benedict.
Uh-huh.
So, it's possible to look up any of those authors and see what they've described. Again, their experience is quite different from mine, although there were similar aspects to it.
Yeah. Well,
there's quite a bit that overlaps in all these experiences.
Yes, yeah. There are some universal features. There's no doubt about it, because I've encountered that myself, particularly the tunnel itself, light, and people extracting religious or religious a sense of religion from some of the symbology that they encounter as they're going through the experience in one way or another. But I've also...
It seems to be always metaphysical in nature.
Yeah.
And also we come back with the idea that there's no such thing as death, and that we're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
We'll be okay no matter how scary it looks, but it somehow it'll just all be okay. And that this reality which we call our life is only a small aspect of what is actually going on. It's part of a much bigger picture, and if we could only get some sort of sense of that, it gives us comfort and peace of mind that, even if we disappear, we don't disappear, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I understand, and it is comforting. It is comforting.